Hangout number 427. Mark Edworthy might be joining us here. He was having some technical difficulties. He had to log off and whatever, but Roger was luckily jumped on before we got started, so it's going to be me. At least for now, it's going to be me and Roger for a bit here. So, without any further ado, I am the Rookie 5. I'm your host, and again, somewhat sane member of society. With me tonight is Roger Hansen. Roger, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Roger Hansen. I'm usually here with Naroki. Sometimes if I don't forget or fall asleep early. I'm on Rumble, YouTube. I'm also on Kick as well as X, I think. Did I already say X?
No, you didn't say X.
Okay, I'm on X. So you can find me on a lot of platforms. So if you don't know me by Roger Hansen, I go by Infamous on the gaming platforms and stuff. So
okay, cool. All right, Mark. Glad you finally got your system fixed. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mark Edworthy, and I'm easily findable on minds.com at minds.com/Medworthy.
Thank you very much, Mark. Okay, for those of you who don't know, I am at, obviously Rumble because you're listening on Rumble, but I'm also at BitChute, Odyssey, MGTOW TV, Bradion, and YouTube. I actually have surpassed 50 subs on YouTube. I don't know how I managed to do that since I don't promote the channel at all. I am also at Facebook, Minds, Gap, MeWe, Getter, and TLB Talks. I'm sorry I was out of commission for a little bit. It was just that kind of a week this week. I will get around to doing the memes episode in the next 7 days. I'm also going to be doing my regular live stream on false accusations for the Rookie 5 live stream. That will be probably later this week. I don't know when. At least until Wednesday, I am doing a 9 to 7:30 shift where I work. So I'm going to try to start the show a little earlier, like 8:30 or so. It would have actually started at 8:30, but I mean, I was so dead tired when I got back to my room from work last night that as soon as my head hit the pillow, I was asleep, and I stayed asleep for most of the next 12 hours. But that is not the case tonight. I am fine. I am live. I've drank a rather large cup of coffee before I came on air, so I should be good for tonight. As long as nobody gets too long-winded, we should actually be done fairly early, actually. We might even be done. We'd actually be done before midnight, which would be good because I don't want to have to deal with any noise complaints. For the topics tonight, we have actually got a few of them. So topic number 1, Four Nations hockey tournament gets caught up in politics. Topic number 2, and this is a Canadian topic, Mark Carney, strongest opponent. Ruby Dhalla gets removed from running for the Liberal Party leadership race. That one is interesting. That one is very, very interesting. Topic number 3, Hooters restaurant filing for bankruptcy. Topic number 4, Delta Airlines plane crash in Toronto. Pilot was another disaster that can be either directly or indirectly tied into DEI. Topic number 5, Trump goes on massive firing spree. The IRS is firing every single he's firing huge numbers of agents over at the IRS, and literally every single Biden-appointed federal judge and DEA. And topic number 6, DNC Vice Chair Dave Hogg caught up in corruption scandal. He's just a nasty little shit, and I had to cover him just to force him to make him look bad, because he's just that type of an individual. And for those of you who don't know, I am at Patreon as the Red Pill Nation. I don't have any other links at this point in time. But let's just hold on a second here, because I forgot to upload a couple of photos of the sleazy little fuck David Hogg here before we get going. I'll probably get around to putting those up at some point tonight during the show. I just have to make sure that I have them ready to go here. Okay, so when you guys talk, I'll have something to do so I don't have to listen to you talk. But without any further ado, let's just get right into topic number one, which is the Four Nations hockey tournament. Now, we don't usually cover a lot of sports on this particular show. The reason why is because it's usually not applicable to what I normally talk about. However, this particular time, it was for a number of reasons. The first reason was because of all of the anti-American, anti-Trump stuff that Trudeau has been pumping out, which is actually kind of given him a bit of a boost in the polls. So now he's gone from absolutely no chance of winning to a slight chance of winning. But what ended up happening is that this Four Nations Cup was only supposed to last for about a week. And what ended up happening is that the first four games were in Montreal. The Montreal fans, hockey fans, are notoriously fickle. The closest equivalent I can think of any other professional sport where the fans can be genuine assholes is the Dallas Cowboy fans to a certain degree. They booed the American national anthem, and they booed pretty loud and vociferously, mostly because Trudeau has been running a huge amount of anti-American propaganda up here lately. And it should be duly pointed out that this was all Trudeau's idea. It actually didn't come from Trump, but it didn't really matter. What happened is that in the first 9 seconds, three fights broke out in about the first minute of the game. The U.S. won the game in Montreal. It ended up being Canada and the U.S. in the final, and the final was held in Boston. And what ended up happening there was that Canada won the game. There was a huge amount of political grandstanding done on both sides of the border. I was willing to forego the usual, when Trudeau, which of course you kind of expected him to do it. He kind of capitalized on Canada winning the Four Nations. I was, okay, I can't stand you. I think you're a prick. But, because it's Canada's sport and people are very passionate about ice hockey here, I decided, okay, I'm willing to forego the usual dislike of Justin Trudeau, and I will just for a day, I will suspend politics. What I wasn't expecting was that literally on every social media hockey site, there were people it was politics like non-stop. And it was and we're not just talking about politics about just Trump and whatever. Like, people were commenting about Trump, for instance, or Trudeau, even on posts that really had nothing to do with him. Like, one of the things that happened in this Four Nations is that the Russians weren't invited. And the Russians weren't invited because, they invaded the Ukraine. I I pointed out the reasons to a few people why the Russians invaded the Ukraine, and I got accused of, in my particular case, I got accused of listening to Kremlin propaganda. And this just gives you the level of stupidity that we were dealing with in regards to what was going on with this, despite the fact that I told them that, and I told them specifically, no, I got that information from the New York Times, and the individual that I was discussing this with continued to double down about the Azov Battalion, and it's like, sorry, are you a fucking idiot? And not only did he continue to double down like a fucking idiot, but somebody actually downvoted me and started, like, as some just random dude just jumped in and started arguing. And it's like I finally had to go, like, look, you stupid shits, like, fact check me or shut the fuck up. And they kept doubling down anyway. I saw lots and lots and lots and lots of talk about politics on a hockey site. And it's like, I mean, okay, I get it. The situation may have been a little bit politically loaded because of what was going on between Trump and Trudeau. But I mean, the politics was just like right over the top. And of course, you also had the stupid sports analogies as well, right? But the politics was just right over the top. I mean, I get it, right? Trump did visit Team USA before the start of the final game, which of course it got some people, like, just caused some people on the left to just absolutely spurg out. And of course, telling them, for instance, that, you know, like, it's not unprecedented to have the head of a country visit their national team before they go into a functioning world championship game. Apparently that was too big of a reach for a lot of people. The whole thing just got ridiculous. Now, as a Canadian, I'm glad the Canadians won. I'm also glad that Connor McDavid got the winning goal. You know, he plays for the Oilers, and it was like all of the games were entertaining, and they were good to watch because there was an incredibly high skill level at all the levels with all the teams at this tournament. It's just, I mean, a lot of it was just way too much. Like, it wasn't about the sport, it was about the politics, right? And, you know, I get it, right? Trump is a very polarizing figure, and he's not necessarily well liked by everybody. I mean, that's to be expected, but I mean, some of the stuff that I saw online about Trump and even about Trudeau bordered on absolute, like, for instance, right, one of the posts I saw listed off who would have been playing for Team Russia if the Russians had been involved, and the Russians probably will be involved at the next tournament, right? And then some individual just went off on this huge anti-Trump rant, and I went to him and I was like, dude, like, went back up to the photo and like, dude, where is Trump mentioned in this photo? Okay, it's not, the Team USA was not Trump's team. And oh yeah, somebody argued with me about that too. Just levels. I mean, yeah, okay, sports and politics kind of like tie together, but I mean, just like, you know, it's kind of sad the way society currently is, that we now have to, like, even when we watch a sports, like a sports game, like a hockey game, right? Like, people just cannot not leave the politics out of it. And I mean, there was just way too much politics for my liking. And with that, I guess I'm going to turn it over to Mark. So Mark, go ahead. Mark, are you there?
That should be better. Sorry. When you said fighting, it reminded me of the sort of fights that I was aware about during the 80s and 90s in the UK football soccer scene. Compared to those, I think the fights that you witness would be just minor brawls. I don't know. This is all related to the Orange Man bad thing, isn't it? Just out of curiosity, when was the last time that Russia actually joined a game? When was the last time that Russia competed? Yeah, okay.
Russia competed at the last Winter Olympics, where they actually won the gold medal.
Okay.
Keep in mind the Canada, Team USA, whatever. None of those guys could send over their NHL professionals because of COVID and whatever. So
yeah. I don't know. The social media thing is concerning everybody. Well, some people do anyway. And there's lots of misinformed people out there. I'm just curious. A lot of these platforms that you were looking at, were they actual newspaper sort of platforms, or were they actual just social media platforms?
I very rarely read the mainstream media anymore, because in Canada, it's literally bought and paid for. In fact, it was a bought and paid for media in Canada that probably contributed to the people in Montreal booing the American national anthem, pissing off the American players.
I don't know. We're going to just keep on seeing this sort of rhetoric sort of going on for the next couple of years. Even after Trudeau leaves power. You just can't please everybody all the time, sort of thing. I don't know. I rarely take any notice of sporting news anyway, so it's just again just a time of the sign of the times, really. Got very little to comment about this one, to be fair.
Well, I mean, I'll be straight up with you. Normally, I don't recover sports. Like, for instance, the week before, 2 weeks before the Super Bowl was on, we didn't even really mention it at all during the show, and it was on Sunday, right? It was like the Super Bowl was on that night when we had the show, right? When I didn't mention it. So, I mean, yeah, but I mean, I was going to just leave this be, but unfortunately, the politicking after the fact on this tournament just really made it necessary to do it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roger.
Yeah, I mean, I heard about it too. And I'm not really much into hockey at all, but like what I have heard about it, to me, it seems like a late effect that's happening in Canada, that's happened in England, and it's happened here. You know what I mean? You'll see it sometimes. Well, it started here first, where they made sports into like an activist movement, and this goes all the way back to like the 1970s. You know, where the NFL was a big thing on it, where some kind of movement was going on that concerned like freaking hippies or their protests. You know, the NFL would always have some crazy shit going on, and then it started happening with soccer over in Europe and England, actually. But that was just here recently, and now I think you guys are getting the after effects. It's starting to kind of dwindle down into Canada too, because that there's really that shit's just bullshit. You know what I mean? Like here in the United States, they talk about taking a knee for freaking some kind of cause or movement, but um, that causes a lot of stupid shit. Like first of all, anybody who rotates their life around freaking sports are a bunch of idiots in the first place. I mean, they really should get a life and stop freaking focusing on the NFL. I know people who will not watch the freaking NFL now because freaking they take a knee. All right, supposed fans of the sport won't watch the actual sport because they are taking a knee and shit like that, and that's exactly what they're doing in Canada. You know what I mean? They're trying to politicize that. Now they have like freaking anti-racist, stop the hate on freaking the NFL football fields, where they're now talking about taking it off of the field, and you're going to see that in Canada a lot with the hockey, where they're going to try to turn your hockey players into sissy boys. At one time they were like athletes with their teeth missing and freaking kicking each other's ass on the freaking on the ice, but now you're going to see them dancing in tutus and freaking singing pretty songs and shit.
To be fair, sorry, Roger. Just to point out something. To be fair, I'm surprised Canada's taken this long to so-called take the knee and do all that sort of action, because in Europe we've been seeing this for the last ever since Black Lives Matter was a thing back in 2016, 2015.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I have to point something out here. I mean, I've got, for instance, the Team Canada coach is a guy I grew up with, John Cooper. Like, I played lacrosse with him and in other sports with him. We grew up in the same town. So yeah, I've got something of a connection with the sport. I mean, I grew up playing it as well. The thing about this is that, I mean, I have to tell some friends of mine that had used to play in the NHL that I, like, for instance, when that whole thing with the hell was his name, Kyle Rittenhouse happened, right? And what ended up happening is that the NHL basically suspended play for one day in solidarity with Robert Blake, and it's like, I mean, it was very obvious. Like, Robert Blake was, and I mean, if they had bothered to look, for instance, Robert Blake was a sexual offender who had kidnapped his son, who was in the back of the vehicle that he got shot at as he was trying to enter, resisting arrest. And it's like the police could not let a known sex offender kidnap a child and let the kid drive and let the guy drive off. Like, they just couldn't do it, and like the NHL couldn't be bothered to do any fact checking on that. And it was like, after that, I said, well, no, that's it. I'm through. I'm not, I'll watch games on TV. If I get comp tickets to go to a game, I'll go, but I'm not going to buy any more NHL merchandise. I'm not going to pay any money until I watch NHL streaming or go to any games, because it's like, like, that was just plain stupid on the NHL's part. And they also had an issue recently with Pride tape that also went really bad. And I got to point out something, that there were a bunch of social justice warriors last season that were demanding that certain NHL players, like, literally get suspended from the league because they wouldn't wear Pride jerseys during warm-up. No, I'm not lying about that.
No, I can believe it. I can definitely believe it. Yeah.
So there's
in this country, yeah.
So there's a lot of politics and culture caught up with. I mean, keep in mind, in Canada, it's the main sport. But it's like, yeah, no, the politics really got revved up to 11 over this, and a lot of it has to do simply because Trudeau was just playing up the anti-American rhetoric on the mainstream media, and too many people have bought into it. And again, right? I mean, like I said before, I seriously cannot blame the American players for starting a fight 9 seconds into that game in Montreal. I mean, kudos to the Boston crowd. I mean, when they played the Canadian anthem at Boston Garden, I mean, there was a few boos, but everybody broke out in the Canadian national anthem after a couple of minutes. And it was like, yeah, okay. So the people in Boston didn't play that game. But it was like, they're just so, like, the politics, especially like around, in particular around Trump, like people were posting up Trump stuff on threads that had absolutely nothing to do with him. And if you told them, like, well, Trump is connected to this thread, how? They would just get pissed off and start screaming at you. And it's like, well he's connected how? Right? Like, and it's like, I'm going to go back to that. I mean, somebody posted up a speculative Team Russia roster for the tournament, which would have made it a 5 nations tournament. And some guy went off on a spiel about as long as my hand about Donald Trump. And it's like, I had to point out to him, it's like, first of all, fuck off with the politics. But also, it's like, yeah, where is Trump mentioned in this post? And the guy got pissed off at me. So it was like, yeah, the politics really went over the top on this one. Does anybody have anything more to say on this one, or can we move on to the next one?
Continue.
Yeah, actually, I do want to say you should never publicly admit that you played lacrosse. just a little word of advice.
Why?
Well, first of all, what the heck are you guys doing out there? Like, you're like holding a freaking stick with a ball inside of it. Like,
yeah, but you're allowed to beat each other with that stick.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's okay. If you can beat each other with a stick, that's all good.
No, it's definitely not cricket. It's not as nice as cricket.
Well, oh no, like box lacrosse. And I know this because a guy who played in the NHL for a few years by the name of Tony Twist. I mean, he just smashed me into the boards at one point when I was a kid. I was always the one that had to go out and defend against him too, because I was the next biggest guy on the other team. So I had to always go out there and have to defend against him. Fortunately, he had hands like cement, so he wasn't particularly good with handling the ball. But I mean, yeah, he was strong as hell. It's like, yeah, he at one point back in the early 90s, he was considered the toughest guy in the NHL, and I had to play defense against him in lacrosse.
I mean,
like, you know, it's like getting hit, but you know what it was like getting hit with a stick with that guy? It was like, yeah, no, he'd knock you halfway across. He'd knock you halfway across the floor with a hit, and that was him as a teenager.
This is without ice, right? So
without ice.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because, like, you know, it, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, God.
Okay, are we done here? Can we move on?
Yeah, we're done. Go ahead.
Okay, next topic.
Sonia says hello to you, by the way.
Hi, Sonia. Okay, so yeah, the lovely woman you see posted up here, her name is Ruby Dhalla. She was as we all know, because we've covered this on the show before, Justin Trudeau stepping down, and there's a Liberal leadership race on, and Mark Carney that's field lacrosse, by the way, Roger, not actual box lacrosse, which is a different sport altogether. Well, I won't say different. It's different, but the same. Mark Carney has been the de facto nominee for the Liberal Party. Now, Ruby Dhalla, I've seen photos of her. I got to admit, this is a very nice photo of her. Ruby Dhalla threw her hat in for the Liberal leadership race, because basically whoever becomes a Liberal leader is effectively the Prime Minister at this point. Now, what ended up happening is that Ruby Dahlia uncovered, because as we all know, like maybe you don't know, but I'm going to let everybody who's listening, the Canadian media, the mainstream media in Canada, is basically bought and paid for, and there's not really a whole lot that can be done about it. But the media here in Canada ignores certain things, like the fact that Mark Carney, the front runner for the Liberal Party leadership in Canada, sits on the board of 24 separate companies, including a couple that made promises to pay their stockholders certain amounts and haven't done it, and the executive chose to park it themselves. And Ruby Dahlia, the woman you see in this photo here, let it be known quite publicly that when the Liberal Party leadership has this debate, that she was going to bring this up. All of a sudden, the Liberal Party found conflict of interest with the country of India, and that suddenly a woman that has been sitting in the House of Parliament for several years now is somehow compromised by the Indian government. Never mind the fact that Justin Trudeau is basically China's stooge at this point. And she was basically turfed from the event. Now, what this kind of reminds me of is the same thing that the Democrat Party has done with both Hillary Clinton and then Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris over the past few elections, where they've already decided who the winner is going to be, and they just simply fixed the race. So they booted out Ruby Dahlia, who, by the way, is a sitting member of Parliament at the House of Commons. She is qualified to run for the Liberal Leadership Party, and they just basically booted her out because she was going to embarrass the living shit out of Mark Dahlia, and potentially, because basically what's gone on here is Mark Carney is the de facto. I'm going to post this photo up now. This dude here, this snarky looking motherfucker is going to be. They've decided in their infinite wisdom that this is going to be the de facto next prime minister. Like, he is going to take over for Justin Trudeau. The thing about this guy is that he's basically Justin Trudeau light. He's not as snarky or as arrogant as Trudeau, but he's just as slimy and two-faced. And yeah, like I said, you guys, I don't know whether you guys were here when we covered the fact that the Liberal Party was also exposed recently for benefiting from the fentanyl trade going into the United States. But it's very likely that Mark Carney, if he doesn't know about it, is definitely privy to it now. And again, while I am not necessarily a fan of Ruby Dahlia, because Ruby Dahlia has backed Justin Trudeau at every step, right? The fact of the matter is that I definitely don't. Like, Mark Carney is a globalist. Like, he's been in attendance at the WEF events in Switzerland. And he's been a proud member. He's openly endorsed it. He's been seen hobnobbing with George Soros and all that crowd. And he's unacceptable, right? Now, I'm hoping that he ends up just being the sacrificial lamb and the guy who gets voted out instead of Justin Trudeau. But the thing is, though, and this ties into the first topic, I mean, they've ramped up the anti-American propaganda to the point where it's a legitimate possibility. Well, not a legit possibility, but it's gone from like no chance of the Liberals winning to a slight chance that the Liberals are going to win, thanks to all of this anti-Trump stuff that's going on in Canada. And you got to understand something. The Liberals and the globalists are so desperate to maintain power in Canada that they will knowingly antagonize and piss off their closest ally and best neighbor to do it. That's what we're facing up in Canada. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Edworthy.
It's funny that you talked about the Liberals just now, because today or yesterday now, Sunday, was Germany's general elections, and it looked like it was the CDU, the German Conservative Party one. Anyway, just a tangent there. I'm glad that you've got Mark Carney now, because obviously he was he was actually the first non-Briton to be appointed in the role of the governor of Bank of England in 2013, and his tenureship ended in 2020. So yeah, I'm glad you've got him now, and we've given him back to you. I don't know. I've got some views about Mark Carney. I'm not sure if they're all publicable. But yeah, he is a bit of a slimy sort of individual, but. As far as him being shot under the bus, being a sort of, I'm not sure.
Not him, Ruby, the woman in the photo.
Okay. And by the way, cute video, cute photo. I don't know very much about her to make any comments on. To be fair, from the heard bits and pieces. So yeah, I think Roger might have a better opinion. Roger? Oh. Okay. No, I'm not having problems with that.
Oh wait, Roger. Yeah, how you doing? Sorry, I don't know why I forgot to turn on my microphone. Roger, are you there? Oh, looks like Mark Roger. Okay, so yeah, Mark. I don't know what's going on here. I think Roger stepped away. We may have to move on to the next topic here and maybe come back to him. Yeah, looks like he's not. He's currently not available at the moment. So yeah, I'll let him when he comes back. I'll let him have his say on this topic. But we have to keep this. We have to keep the show moving here. So I'm going to move over to the next one. Oh, look at this! Is the Hooters. This is the Hooters topic. Oh my God. Okay, hold on a second. There we go. And for your entertainment, Mark, I will now post up the Hooters girl of this one Hooters restaurant, and it will explain literally the entire reason why Hooters is going bankrupt. There you go. There you go. Wasn't that a lovely transition from Ruby Dahlia to this? Don't you just want to go to Hooters now? Oh my God. Okay. This is Hooters is what is more commonly known as a restaurant. For the longest time, it was noted for having women in skimpy outfits, but like hot women in skimpy outfits, not women like the ones you currently are seeing on screen that looked like they ate everything in the menu before they actually came out and talked to you. I really don't have any idea how somebody could make this big of a disconnect on a restaurant. Like, I mean, you have to have epic levels of disconnect to reality and to everything else for that matter to figure out that hiring women that are heavier than almost every other person that works and eats in that restaurant serving you food in the class. And when I say a restaurant, I'm talking about restaurants that, sometimes the food isn't so great, but I mean, like you go to these restaurants, because the waitresses are freaking hot. Like I've met a couple of women in these restaurants, like they are usually very, very good looking. They usually have really good bodies. They definitely don't look like any of the 7 women that you're seeing on this show. And I mean, the fact of the matter is that, you had management at whoever took over and the executive in this place. Like, how is it that this person could not figure out that Hooters falls into the category of restaurant, and you don't hire land, and I don't really care if I offend some people of other, but you don't hire 250-pound land whales to serve you food in a restaurant. Like, I mean, like I'm looking at the 6 women, the 7 women in this photo, and it's like there's not one of them that rates higher than a 4, right? Like, if you're going to have women who look like this serving you food, the food had better be good. Now, Hooters was not necessarily always known for its food, right? Hooters was known for its really hot women in really tight-fitting outfits, right? That's why people went to Hooters. And it's like, for the executive at Hooters to go and do this, and if this is what's going on at every single restaurant that's left in the U.S., it's like, yeah, no wonder they're going to potentially be filing for bankruptcy. Are you back, Mark? Roger? Yeah, no, I deliberately put that photo up just to freak the hell out of you.
Yeah.
What did I step into? I have no problem with big girls, but like this kind of shocked me.
Oh no, these aren't big. Well, let's not insult these girls. I'm sure they won't get angry because they're all bigger than that, much, much, much bigger than that. And then of course we have this one where you literally have 2 transgenders.
Oh God.
Working. Yeah. Oh, no. So it's like you see the disconnect with Hooters here, and you can understand why, if this has been going on at Hooters all over North America, are you really all that surprised that Hooters is potentially filing for bankruptcy?
Are you sure that only 2 of those are transgender?
Well, okay, the one on the right definitely isn't trans. The one on the far right and the far left are not transgender. The one in the middle looks like she's a woman as well, but the 2 tall blondes, yeah.
The blonde on the left, maybe straight, or maybe an actual woman. Blonde on the right.
Look at the bulge in the crotch, dude.
Oh, okay.
You just had to come out and say it. It's like, look at the bulge. Oh yeah, and then also remember the Adam's apple. That's the dead giveaway.
Oh, absolutely, that's the dead giveaway.
Punch them right in the neck, dude. If they freaking choke to death, then they're freaking men.
Yeah, I mean, it's, so yeah, is it any really yeah, sorry, Mark, you're up. Is it any really surprise that Hooters, a restaurant devoted to women in tight fitting outfits serving you food, now that they're hiring transgenders and land whales to serve you food, that they're suddenly not doing as well anymore, and just a massive disconnect around that. So go ahead.
I'm not aware of Hooters. They don't. There isn't an outlet in the UK, as far as I'm aware. But this goes back to. I presume this goes back to human resources and quotas. Upper management have decided that they have to have a quota of certain amount of people that fits a stereotype, if you like, but it's really down to market forces at the end of the day. If consumers don't like what they seeing or being served, or don't like the part of the package, then they will not buy from that company. So yeah, companies come and go. Jeez, yeah, companies come and go, and let the market decide. Really, that's all I can say. But yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, Roger, you have to comment on the Liberal leadership race and this one. So the floor is yours for the next few minutes.
All right. You want me to talk about this?
Yeah, I want you to talk about this, and also the last topic about the Liberal leadership race in Canada, if you have anything to add there.
Yeah. With that whole Liberal thing with the woman that got booted out.
You mean that woman?
No, I forgot her name. Is
Ruby Dhalla. Ruby Dhalla.
Ruby Dhalla. The only thing I know about that is like that's the way freaking a lot of these political parties do. They freaking I call it cannibalizing one another. They have a tendency of choosing who they want in their party and they don't want, and they just kind of like go through the ranks and just start cutting them out. Like and here in the United States, even the Republicans do that. Like just before Trump's first run for presidency, they did it, and a lot of conservatives were just freaking kicked out of the party, basically, the political leaders. And it was really weird, and that's where I first came up with the term cannibalizing, because that's what they called it. They're cannibalizing their political party. And I couldn't understand it until later when Donald Trump started running for president, and that's when it started making sense, and there was that whole change. So when I see stuff like that, what I see is like they're mobilizing. They've got a plan in place, and they're planning on doing something. So that's something I would tell you to keep an eye out for. There's something big that's about to take place, and like I've had conversations with you that pertains to some of the stuff that you said, like when I mentioned Mongolia and how Canada has agreements with them, and you guys have had the longest political relationship with Mongolia for out of all the countries here in America, and there's a reason for that. That Canada, in my opinion, is using Mongolia as a go-between in between Russia or China and Canada, like us in the United States, how we use Israel as a go-between between us and China. And also, I see two problems there with it. That's one of them. But another thing that I see when it comes to you guys' relationship with Mongolia is the mineral trade and the mining, where Canada could be paying Canadians proper wages for mining minerals and everything that you need right there in the country. They're going outside of the country and paying lower prices to Mongolians so that they can do it at a cheaper price, So I see that as something that's happening. And also, you were mentioning the freaking drugs and stuff. that's the thing that I noticed with all of this stuff popping up with Donald Trump about the Panama Canal and all of the hype that he's doing over that. It's because I believe that he's really focusing on this drug. You know what I mean? He really wants to take focus to it, and no matter what anybody can say, they can't say that China is not behind the fentanyl problem that's going on. So I can see that as being the reasoning behind Panama and causing such a big stir with that. And then Canada, I think it's a good thing if they're actually wanting to fight against fentanyl. I don't know for sure how much they're a part of all that, but it does seem odd that a lot of the fentanyl does come out of Canada. And with these transgender girls and the heavier set women, like I said, I don't have problems with heavier set women, but like that's how Hooters ended up getting famous. You know what I mean? Was because of beautiful women, like you said. So if they're going bankrupt, I think you pretty much look at this picture and you'll know why they're going bankrupt, because the men that go to Hooters aren't going to freaking Hooters for the food. I mean, you can go down to freaking Steak and Shake, you know what I mean, here in the United States and get the same kind of food. So their prices are outrageous. So people aren't going to that place to freaking pay those outrageous prices for the food. So that's all I got on that.
Well, not to mention the fact that they're eating all the food before it actually even gets out on the
floor. Actually, the price thing would make much more sense. Actually, arguably the sort of is outdated anyway, as far as a lot of consumers are concerned. People just want to go into a restaurant and get some food and spend time with their friends and stuff, and family and stuff. But it's not. It's let's not forget that we're in that a lot of or most of the West is in sort of a economic situation at the moment. Food prices are increasing. The cost of living, quote unquote, thing is a major issue. So yeah, if they are selling, let's say, substandard food at an inflated price, then obviously consumers are not going to be happy with that.
No, they're not. Anybody else have anything more to say on this one, or can we move on?
Yeah, come on.
But let's just keep this photo up just to give the people who are watching this some nightmares, because I'm just that type of a person. Okay, let's get on. Let's move on to the next one here. Hey, this one is also really interesting. There was also a plane crash in Arizona, which I didn't have time to look into. What ended up happening is there was a Delta Airlines plane. Here, let me just. Yeah, that's how it ended up. Delta Airlines plane that crashed in Pearson Airport ended up upside down. Nobody died. But I mean, still, though, it was a very Pearson Airport is like basically the big airport in Toronto, and it shut down the air. And of course, it was a very public thing because everybody saw it. It wasn't like the DC midair collision where people saw it go into the river, but it wasn't like right at the airport. Like this plane crashed right at the airport, and I mean, they were able to prevent anybody from dying, but that doesn't change the fact that when people started looking, first of all, and this is not any indication of women in general, but it was an all-female pilot, co-pilot, and flight crew. Now, that is okay, if they have the qualifications. But then, of course, upon closer inspection, it turned out that the pilot and the co-pilot were both DEI hires that guy basically got pushed out through the system. Now, this is, if you count the DC midair crash, you count the hurricane response in Florida and the hurricane response in South Carolina, or is it North Carolina? One of the Carolinas. And you count the fire in LA. This is the fifth time in, I think, almost 4 months where DEI hires forced into positions that were brought into positions because of their skin color or their gender or their sexual orientation as opposed to on merit, where there has been a major incident involved. This particular incident could have been a whole lot worse. Nobody died. But I mean, the nature of what happened in Toronto is that, again, like this plane crashed on the tarmac of the airport at Pearson International Airport, right? So everybody saw it go down. And again, they started looking, and of course, you're starting to see the usual excuses being made for this. And it's sort of like, I got to point out that, again, I don't have an issue with females being pilots. I don't have an issue with anybody being a pilot as long as they have demonstrated competence and capability of operating and flying a plane. And yeah, pilots in general are paid very, very poorly as opposed to what they should be making for operating pieces of like operating machinery and vehicles that fly hundreds of people around from point A to point B. Like, your safety is dependent on an individual who makes potentially less money than a postal carrier at times. That's bad enough. So, I mean, most of the best pilots typically don't work for commercial airlines anymore. They work for private contractors or whatever, right? They don't work for the airlines. That's bad enough. Then you throw in DEI on top of all that, and you have a recipe for disaster. Now, did it have everything to do with this particular crash? Maybe, maybe not. There seems to be some butt covering around this issue at this point, but what is becoming very, very obvious is that if there seems to be life and limb on the line, or people's lives are dependent on it, like, you do not use DEI hiring practices in jobs where hundreds of people's lives are on the line. You hire the best people to do the flight. If that particular person happens to be a woman, then so be it. But you don't just hire a woman just for the sake of hiring a woman, just for the optics. This is potentially what you get. Now, did it play into this? No. But I mean, I also have to point out something, and I was actually getting into a bit of a discussion with Mark Edworthy about this before the show, right? The fire departments are overwhelmingly male. Like, overwhelmingly male. The chances statistically of 3 lesbian female firefighters rising up to the 3 key positions of the LA Fire Department and running the LA Fire Department at a time when the LA Fire Department failed to produce the results that it was needed to deal with a situation that the city had knowingly been ignoring over budgetary and also environmental concerns, I think is absolutely staggering. And this is another one of those. I mean, yeah, I get it. Unmanned flight. Ha ha ha. Yeah. Great blow for women and feminism everywhere, which is okay if the woman can fly the plane. But could she fly the plane? Like, was she a DEI hire? And it's very much looking as though she got hired over more qualified candidates just because she was a woman. And this is what you get. The plane. Upside down. And with it, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
I'm just curious. I presume there was a co-pilot on this plane.
Yeah, it was a female co-pilot.
Okay. Well, in these sort of circumstances, there's always two pilots, isn't there? I don't know. Like you said, there's the entire merit over upper attributes sort of issue here. What was I saying before we started? I'm curious to know how many hours in there she had before, or these two pilots had before they before this incident. So presumably they would have had a number of hours in flight before they can even touch a passenger airliner. As far as you point out the U.S. Fire Department or departments, then what we were talking about beforehand, and as I was saying to you beforehand, those three hires we were talking about are mainly administration public relation officers. So they're not putting out fires themselves. They're in front of a camera and typing up reports and talking to the public. They may not be qualified in doing their fire emergency sort of rescue sort of things, but they might be extremely qualified in doing the public relations.
Well, as far as I know, when it comes to police, fire, and ambulance, you have to have had experience being a fireman or being a police officer or being an ambulance operator before you move up the ranks. That's generally how it works. Again, right? And again, we're not just talking about three women here. We're talking about three lesbian women in a profession that is like 95 to 97% male. And it's not just three women, it's three lesbian women. Like, I mean, that's hundreds of thousands to one of that happening.
Be curious to look at their curriculum vitae, their resumes, and see what they did before they had this. I don't know. I presume this is this airplane issue is still being investigated. So
yeah, it is. It only happened this week. Yeah, it only happened. Yeah, so we don't know the details. It only happened this week. It was an all-female flight crew. The woman, the pilot, and the co-pilot both appear to be DEI hires, which is, again, the fifth time in 4 months where major accidents have occurred where DEI was either directly or indirectly involved.
Arguably, it could be just a coincidence. Arguably.
After about 5 or 6 times, coincidence really starts to wear thin. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I do agree with you, but just playing devil's advocate here. I don't know. We'd have to wait for the investigation to be completed before I can make any sort of concrete conclusions, I think.
Yep. Okay, are you done? All right,
Yeah,
Roger, you're up.
Well, first of all, the one thing that I want to know is what the hell caused it to flip upside down. The CNN said that it flipped upside down, and it actually was an incident that is kind of related to another one, according to them, that happened back in 1987. And the only thing that caused no deaths, and it was a safe, uh, uh, it didn't cause any deaths like the one in 1987, was because of the way the wings were structured. Because this time when it flipped over, the wings broke off, where the one before, the wings didn't break off. And they said that in a situation like that, you don't want the fuselage to be freaking ruptured. So that was a good thing, I guess. But the thing that still is a question is what the hell caused it to flip over? It was sitting still. It wasn't landing or anything. It was just there on the runway, and it just all of a sudden flipped over.
No, it landed. I saw a video of the crash. It came down. It came down hard, and it came down, and the front wheel just gave out, and it just kind of rolled over.
So it was landing.
It was landing, yeah.
Okay. And then another thing that I wanted to point out too was that according to mainstream media, those allegations and everything about Delta are false, because on late Thursday, Delta said that both the captain and the first officer of the flight were FAA certified, and according to contrary assertions, the airline said it has been made online. Neither had failed their training, so they were certified. They were dignified people, man. I believe in the one before that you brought up, freaking, they didn't even have a co-pilot. Wasn't that correct? Like, it was just like
I don't. Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, the military aircraft didn't have a co-pilot. Yeah,
right.
No.
You know what I mean? And it, to me, that's what seems odd when it comes to all of this, like these weird, bizarre accidents that are happening with airplanes. And now we get one that's flipped upside down. Like, it's crazy shit. So that's the kind of stuff that sticks out to me.
Just a point on the FCA or FAA certification. Yeah. What is the procedure? I mean, I can imagine a lot of these certifications are just paper-based exams.
Well, FFA, don't mix that up for FFA. That's Future Farmers of America. FAA is Aeronautics Administration.
Yeah.
So you have to go to school to become a pilot, and then after you go to school to become a pilot, you have to actually take this test that the FFA has to pass or fail you on, and that's what.
I'm just curious about how stringent that test is. What's the actual test? What is involved in the test?
Well, apparently, after you pass that test, you can show up drunk and still be able to fly an airplane.
Yeah, precisely. That's me.
They've also, and this is something that happened specifically with the DC air crash. They have also been fast tracking women and minorities through the system without them having to go through the same checks that the males have to go through. So again, we don't know the whole background yet. They're still investigating. But yeah, this is looking very much, again, right? The optics are suggesting that this may just be a couple of DEI hires that were basically put into a position they shouldn't have been put into because they weren't quite there up to cut yet. But they wanted to do it because of optics, right? Like they wanted the concept of the quote unquote unmanned flight.
Now, the FAA's requirements for a pilot certification is instrument rating and private pilot or airplane category, and then flight instructor or airplane category. Then you have the private pilot for rotorcraft category, which is helicopter rating. So, and they also have certification for like the actual being a part of the aircraft. That has to be certified. Then the air carrier certification and the medical certification. So,
Funny enough, my uncle is actually a glider. Oh, he's an amateur glider pilot, and I presume he went through similar sort of training many years ago. I was just curious about your 1987 point because that reminded me of the Lockerbie plane scandal, but that was in 1988 on Pan Am Flight 103.
That was a bomb on an aircraft, though.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. It was related to Libya.
Yeah, he goes straight to the terrorists. You know what I'm saying? Have you noticed that? Like freaking first chance.
Well,
it's got.
No, when you said 1987, it just automatically made me think of Lockerbie.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, the thing in '87 is in Denver. There was a Denver incident that happened there, but I could probably figure out where I just had that because I ended up moving to another one to find out what the regulations were.
By the way, this was Canada, not the U.S. So,
well, I mean, I know it's just that this one is really, really close to it. The same exact thing happened back in 1987 in Denver. That will happen in Toronto, is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what's weird about it. My whole question though is why the hell are these airplanes flipping upside down?
And
well,
also,
in this particular case, the crash, like I said, the front tire caved in as they were landing because they came down. I saw the crash on Instagram. They came down at a very sharp angle, and they came down really hard. The back wheels were able to take the whole trailer, but when they came down at the front end, they came down really hard and really fast, and the front supporting wheel just gave out underneath, and they basically hit the ground, and they spun out, and that's what caused them to flip over. And the wing snapped. That's what caused them to flip over.
Yeah.
Also, it's surprising that there was no deaths on there. I would like.
Oh well, I mean, think about what would have happened if that wing had gone through the fuselage.
Yeah. And that's what they were saying. I found it was on CNN, and they said that the 1987 accident was in Denver, and it killed 28 people. And this was a DC-9 aircraft that flipped over, and that was one of the biggest problems was the fuselage and the wing. It's built to where freaking the wing would actually is supposed to break off, because if it didn't break off, it would have caused deaths, which previously
the gas explosions and so forth. Yes, yeah.
Also, another point I think, Boeing has been criticised for putting in substandard doors and window frames and stuff into their planes.
I think this is a Douglas aircraft. This wasn't a Boeing.
Okay, I just wonder if there's been any investigations or any criticisms.
Oh, yes, there has. There has been. We covered it. Of those, there were two individuals. One who somehow managed to suicide himself just before he was due to testify against Boeing, and another guy who apparently also died in an accident just before he was about to testify against Boeing. Yeah, that we actually covered that on the show, on the RPN. I can't remember what number, but we did cover that on the show.
Now, the one thing that I do want to point out is that these accidents are pretty strange, okay? And Boeing is probably an issue when it comes to that because freaking they're not all in the same freaking from the same companies. You know what I'm saying? So I could see that as being an issue. And they've never been able to get military contracts because of their substandard work. Believe it or not, I mean they've always. Who is it again that is always doing the contracts for the Air Force? Lockheed always beats them out.
Yeah.
They always beat them out because they can never beat them with their standards. You know what I mean? They've always had issues. So that would be a very, very that would be actually a pretty valid statement right there. It could be.
Also, Roger, another point that needs to think about is sure that the planes are being manufactured by different companies, but individual components of those planes may be shared between multiple companies, like we see in the technology world. And when it comes to computers or phones and stuff, sure, you might get a phone from Apple and you might get a phone from Samsung, but they're using both QCOM wireless receivers, wireless chipsets.
Now this is a DC-9. That was the one that was in Denver. And this one, what kind of an airplane was this one?
I'm trying to remember. It's not a Boeing. I'm pretty sure it's not a Boeing.
Now that would be something that would be interesting to look into because I do find it odd that they're doing it, and that makes two of them. I'd almost bet that they're the same kind. I'd almost bet.
Hold on a second. Let me just take a look here. Toronto airline crash. Pearson Airport crash. Plane.
Now, Delta Airlines plane crashes in Toronto from being advancements in aircraft design and seat safety prevented the Delta Airlines plane crash in Toronto from being much worse, an aviation safety expert said Monday. So everything that could go wrong went wrong, yet 80 people survived the accident, said David Sosi, a CNN safety analysis. And you don't ever trust a CNN safety analysis.
Does the report say what sort of injuries?
Go ahead, look. I'm still trying to figure out what plane it was.
Okay. Sure. They said 18 people were injured. At least 18 people were injured in the crash at Canada's Toronto Pearson International Airport, according to authorities.
Doesn't define what injuries that.
No, the Delta Airlines flight with 80 people on board from Minneapolis ended upside down on the runway, and one passenger described hanging like bats inside the aircraft after it crashed. And that's when they started talking. Sosi said the crash could have been much worse, and he drew a comparison with the 1987 accident in Denver that killed 28 people when a DC-9 aircraft flipped over in similar circumstances. So I'm wondering if that's a DC-9 because he's drawing that comparison, but then he goes on to say improved safety and stronger, more secure seats made the biggest difference in the two incidents. So I'm guessing that they were both DC-9 aircrafts.
Yeah, well, it's. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen the word Boeing brought up around it, so yeah.
Actually, I just pulled up a load of images of McDonnell Douglas and DC-9s, and no, I would say no, they're different planes.
Oh, really?
Just by looking at them, it looks different. Yeah,
That's
Especially
one.
if you-
Then that's one thing about this article
Well, I mean, I'm noticing that they're not telling us what type of a plane it was. The three articles I've looked at so far, like nobody's mentioned the type of plane it is. It could be a Boeing. You know, keep in mind that this is not the same type of Boeing aircraft that would have been. Again, if it was a Boeing, that means that if it was the type of Boeing aircraft that would falter like this, keep in mind Boeing was also doing DEI hiring in their manufacturing process as well. That's a double whammy on this particular situation.
I found the name of the aircraft.
What's the name of the aircraft?
The aircraft is Bombardier CRJ 900.
Oh, that's a Quebec company. Okay, yeah. Usually they make pretty good planes.
Well, it's Quebec, of course. You would say that.
Bombardier is based out of Quebec.
Yeah,
I know that for a fact. Yeah,
of course you would say that. It's like Mark with bread. Nobody makes better bread than people in Canada, dude. It's like
Okay. Something you just said in relation to the manufacturing and DEI hires. I presume that they've got stringent quality assurance, quality control.
Well, here's the thing. That was the issue with Boeing, and we're kind of getting off topic here. But the issue with Boeing is that Boeing was that the quality controls at Boeing were being deliberately overlooked.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what that guy was testifying on. And keep in mind, I mean, Boeing, somebody inside the Boeing company was willing to kill potentially twice in order to prevent that information from becoming public. On paper.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is there anything else on this one, or are you ready to move on to the next one?
I think if we keep talking about this, you're going to go crazy.
Fair enough.
I know how you are, man. You're like,
oh, you think everybody's going to randomly say boobs or something like that? No,
you're going to flip out and say, "Why can't you guys just shut up so I can get on to Trump real quick?" And this is the good part. Shut up, guys.
Okay, Trump, here we come.
This is the good part he wants to get into now. So
okay. By the way, guys, I'm not a hardcore Trump fan, man.
You got to admit, this stuff is really getting cool, dude. Like, I mean, seriously, I can't stop laughing just thinking about all the stuff that's been happening because of Doge. I mean,
oh my God, yeah. Okay. By the way, Joy Reid got fired today.
Joy Reid
from MSNBC.
Oh, okay.
Good.
The single. Unfortunately, it happened today, not yesterday, so it's going to be on 4/28. If we add another topic tonight, it's probably going to be the issue of Doctor Who potentially being canceled and Amazon buying the rights to 007. But we will get onto that after we finish topic number 6, if we want to do topic 7. In the meantime, yes, Donald Trump. Hold on a second here. Let me just get a photo of him here. Donald Trump has done what you kind of figured he was going to do. Because Biden, as we all remember, because I covered it on the RPN, I can't remember what number show it was, but we did cover it on RPN about Biden hiring, what was it, 43,000 or 17,000 additional IRS agents. And the aim of hiring those IRS agents was to weaponize the IRS to start going after potential political dissidents and so forth. That's the reason why he hired them. They also did stuff back then, like lowering the point where businesses had to report expenses down to $600, which, by the way, at that time was less expensive than your average rifle, as opposed to $2,000. And it was like, so yeah, if you buy a couch, the people who sell the couch have to register that purchase with the government. You know, but yeah, Donald Trump basically went in to, and you knew he was going to. I kind of figured he was going to do this, right? Because I mean, Donald Trump has done. I mean, he has not everything he's done I've agreed with, but I mean, Joe Biden and the Democrats were clearly attempting to weaponize the IRS to go after their own citizens. By the way, Barack Obama did this as well. So he let them go. He also, and by the way, I suspect who's the name of that guy who's leading the charge of all those legal, the hell was that guy's name? Mark Smith or whatever his name is? I know his last name was Smith. Mark Smith, Kevin Smith. No, not Kevin Smith. The prosecutor, the guy, that federal prosecutor whose job was to go after Trump. I can't remember his name, but he resigned after Trump won. I should remember this guy's name. But I mean, he resigned. But I mean, all of the people that were underneath him chose to stay on. Yeah, go ahead. Somebody do some research on that one, because I think that name was up. That name is out there. I know the last name was Smith. But I mean, Biden hired all the other prosecutors and all that sort of thing. And again, this is something that happened. This goes back to his first term from 2017 to 2021, where
sorry, Jack Smith.
Jack Smith, that's his name, Jack Smith. See, Jack Smith resigned, but all the people who worked underneath him stayed in. And I mean, Biden and the Democrats, of course, hired a lot of these prosecutors specifically. I mean, for instance, a lot of it was weaponized over January 6th, for instance, right? Like there were some fairly bogus charges brought. In fact, there's still people sitting in jail over J6 that didn't do anything wrong. And it's also been pointed out that it took them 2.5, 3 years to finally get around to charging Ray Epps, who was quite clearly agitating on J6. So yeah, Donald Trump has basically gone in. He's done what he expected, because I mean, those IRS hires were basically hired as a political tool by the Biden administration to harass their critics. The prosecutors, and he fired a lot of them, were there basically for weaponization of January the 6th, or they were there, as political tools of intimidation for the Biden administration. I guess we can all be quite grateful that Biden didn't win, that Harris didn't win the election last year. But yeah, Trump seems to be, and I gotta say Trump is basically following the same playbook that Javier Milei. He's going about it in a different way. Naturally, of course, and this has been something that's been brought up. I mean, you get all these government employees talking about, oh, I lost my job, I have nowhere to go to, and it's like it's been pointed out, and I have to point this out too, because I work up in the patch. Like nobody in the Democrat Party was crying when hundreds of thousands of, thousands, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of people got laid off in the energy sector. Nobody was crying about them. In fact, there's a video I saw today of Biden literally telling these energy sector workers to go learn to code. So my response to these government employees that have been fired because of Trump's cutbacks, you know what? Go learn to code. Seriously, go learn to fucking code. If you don't like that responsible, then maybe you shouldn't have been giving it to the energy sector individuals, the coal miners, the oil people in oil and gas that lost their jobs because Biden wanted to fucking go green. And you know what? Yeah, these employees were, again, I'm just going to say it one more time and then I'm going to turn it over to Mark, but the employees in the IRS were hired specifically by the Biden administration to harass their political opponents. And those prosecutors, most of them were the ones who were involved in the J6 stuff or were directly weaponized to do lawfare against Trump personally. Jack Smith wisely resigned before he got fired, but he absolutely would have been fired. In fact, if I was Jack Smith, I wouldn't be in the country because I wouldn't be working in the US if I was him. Because the hammer's gonna come down on him big time in some form or fashion. And it's sort of like, oh, well, he's just being sour grapes because he's pissed off. Because, well, I mean, look at what they did to Trump over the past 4 years. Mm-hmm. You know, like I'd be harboring a serious goddamn grudge too, you know, to expect somebody to not have bad feelings and feel a little bit angry about what happened to him. Yeah, you know what? He's in a position to deal with some of these individuals now, and he is dealing with them. That he couldn't get rid of Jack Smith, but he could definitely fire all the people who were working under him. He couldn't do anything about the IRS auditing the shit out of him when he was sitting for those 4 years that he was not sitting in office. But he sure as hell could do something about the IRS now, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Now, am I fully on Team Trump? No. I think this is being done on a personal level and on a level that, you know, like clearly like the apparatus of state. Because, I mean, as we're all aware, there was a 250-year-old person receiving Social Security that got caught, that obviously is no longer receiving social, but there's been like the amount of money that has been caught in. Oh, and also Stacey Abrams. They found a $2 billion slush fund via the EPA. $2 billion that was going straightly into the hands of Stacey Abrams, who was that woman who tried to become governor of Georgia. So, I mean, they're just upending this corruption all over the place. And oh, by the way, they still haven't gone over to Treasury, and they still haven't really looked very hard at the Fed yet, which they're going to get into. And and let's not even get into the big enchilada, the one where they're really going to find a lot of waste, the Pentagon and the Defense Department and the State Department. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
I did see a report a couple of days ago that say Trump are planning to do an audit of the Fort Knox. So let's see if the US has actually got any gold in their reserves, or if it's.
I've been hearing rumors about that. There about not being any gold in Fort Knox for years now. Continue.
Yeah. It's all given over to China. As far as firing is concerned, the senior employees or ex-employees, after all, these employees are all civil servants, in effect. So the senior employees, civil servants, ex-civil servants, can easily find jobs in private sector. I mean, if you're a junior, if you're just a desk clerk, if you're an administrator, then yeah, it's going to be harder. But they
can learn to code. Continue.
Yeah, indeed. It's interesting to see what's happening in the US in relation to the so-called drain in the swamp concept. So and a term I've not heard recently, but still the same thing. If I find it amusing that Yvette Fielding, the UK Home Office Secretary, suggested that the UK should do a sort of Doge sort of thing within the last couple of days. Obviously, it's not going to work in the UK because hell, she's Minister of Home Affairs, and arguably there's been quite a bit of corruption in the Home Office in the UK. And also, the biggest issue is that all civil servants, or the majority of civil servants in the UK, are unionised, and unions in this country have extreme political clout. In the US, you can fire an entire department and nobody's going to raise an eyebrow over it. But in the UK, you fire a department or a large percentage of the department, and you find the entire civil service gone on strike. So yeah, it's just interesting to see the parallels there. But yeah, it's be interesting to see how this pans out. Also, if Trump has fired a load of federal judges, I don't know how many, but is that going to cause a shortfall in the amount of sitting judges, and therefore he has to hire presumably he would. Oh,
Hello. Yeah. Are you
that's
done?
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Roger,
yeah. Sorry, just to go back to my previous question. If Trump has fired a large amount of judges, does that mean he has to hire an equal or fairly equal amount of judges to replace them?
I'm going to have to assume, though, that is going to take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I
do.
mean,
They do have to be replaced, but not immediately, like you said.
Yeah. So over the next couple of years, or next year or two, we're going to see a whole load of. Do we know how many judges were fired?
tens of thousands, apparently, like a
Okay.
lot. Like it was like
Okay.
it wasn't just in DC; it was like everywhere. I will point out something curious because somebody has actually gone and looked. The number of people in the DC area looking for a criminal attorney or planning on moving out of the Washington DC area has spiked significantly in the DC area.
Makes sense. Yeah. We've seen people moving from one state to another state. In the technology world, seeing people moving out of California into places like Florida just to get away from the entire political game. So yeah, I can see a similarity with Washington DC there.
Now, I haven't seen how many of them there is, but I doubt they'll have numbers up. I actually did find out a lot of cool stuff about this, though. Which, you guys still there, or did I get cut?
Yeah, carry on.
I'm still here. I'm just.
Oh, you want me to go?
Yeah, you're up, man.
Oh, okay. Now, first of all, before I get started, I do want to say that one day I will see Trish Reagan in a freaking bikini, nice sleek pair of lingerie, all sexy and hot. I mean, just sitting there watching her with that face just makes me think funny thoughts. You know what I'm saying? Come on now, dude. How can you torture a brother like that?
That's the Red Pill Nation. One standard, no standard. Thank you very much for living up to that no standard, one standard.
Now, with her, I do also want to point out that Fox actually fired her because of freaking COVID. Just so people, because she's one of the first ones who actually called it out and said it was a scam, and they had to let her go because of it. But that's not what the topic's about. But I figured I'd mention that because that's actually pretty cool. But Donald Trump, see this whole thing with firing previous Department of Justice prosecuting attorneys and stuff like that. That's actually standard when it comes to change of regimes here in the United States. Like even like the in New York, okay, like the mayor, whenever a new mayor is appointed for New York, the police chief usually, out of respects, always sends a letter of resignation to him, and usually the mayor turns it down. But that's like standard protocol. You know what I mean? It's always expected that they send it, and they turn it down. And at one point, that's the way it always was. It was the president who went through and appointed all of these judges. You know what I mean?
It is standard, but we've not seen it on this level, this number before.
At one time, they were doing it every single presidential election. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just these presidents have gotten so lazy that they just let the judges just keep on doing their jobs. You know what I mean? But at one time, it was always, the president was the one who appointed his judges, all of that. The Department of Justice is actually supposed to be ran by freaking the executive branch, and the president is in charge of the executive branch here in the United States. So he's the one who appoints his cabinet. His cabinet's the one who takes care of the Department of Justice. And that's the way it works. But instead of doing their jobs, they want to make it nice and easy and soft on themselves. They don't want to have to go through and meticulously say that we need to get rid of these judges and replace them with a new one. And everybody here, everybody all around the world talks about career politicians and how they don't like them. Well, if people would go through and fire these judges and hire new ones, then that means that judge isn't going to be sitting on that freaking bench for the next 50 years drawing a paycheck. Put a new judge in with a new perspective and make it to where it's constantly in rotation.
50 years. So I had to laugh at that because half the judges are over the age of 45 anyway. So 50 years. Yeah, there is a completely different system in Europe, in the UK, where our Prime Minister cannot really do anything once a judge is appointed. A judge is appointed until the bar decides or until he retires.
That's one of the things that I think that the United States, because I like to go into history if you guys haven't noticed, but like the United States, I think the biggest mistake they did was create the Department of Justice, because what they did with that is they created a branch within the executive branch, which emulates the Supreme Court. And what that basically entails is, like, before the Department of Justice was around, the states and the people, us, went to the Supreme Court with our grievances, and we took care of our problems state by state in each person. And that was complicated for the federal government. They didn't like that idea, so they created the Department of Justice, which emulated the Supreme Court, so that it took the states and it took each individual out of the justice or the process of justice. You know what I'm saying? So instead of the Supreme Court being freaking the only branch of government where the individual or the state could go to with their grievances, they have the Department of Justice, which took the place of us. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I think that the big problem really lays into. Now, it's bad enough they did that, but now they're not freaking going through and making sure that these judges are freaking not in office for more than freaking 8 years. You know, if a president leaves office, those judges that he appoints should be gone too. And I think that it's a good thing that he did this. So
I can see an issue with that because let's say you have a questionable leader, such as Biden, as an example, and he pushes in judges in at the first opportunity. Then you've got potentially 4 to 8 years worth of questionable judges.
then the next president should get rid of those judges and create a system with his judges. You see, that's what. So they only have a 8-year period of being in office, and that those judges are circulated in and out. You know. So,
but also you lose a lot of good talents there as well, arguably.
Well, I mean, it's better than having a career judge sitting on the same bench. You know what I mean?
I can see pros and cons to this one.
Well, I mean, for me personally, the Department of Justice is a waste of time. It's in the first place, like the Supreme Court and the court systems, according to each state, should be the only things that are there. When the whole reasoning behind the Department of Justice in the first place is because of John J. McCloy from New York, who decided that he wanted to safeguard the Federalist programs that were being put into place against the Anti-Federalists when they had an issue with the Constitution. All right, and you would think that they wanted to write the Constitution so that they could take care of the problems that were involved with the Articles of Confederation, which were in place before the Constitution. But they didn't want to do that. They did it in secrecy so that they could bring up the Constitution. And they thought that everybody that was at this convention would agree to sign this Constitution, and they would love it. But there were groups within the convention who didn't agree with it, and they were called the Anti-Federalists. Okay? The Anti-Federalists walked out and refused to sign the Constitution, and the only way they agreed to do it was if the Bill of Rights was written up, and until they agreed to the Bill of Rights being written up, they wouldn't sign it, and that caused a rift. Now, John J. McCloy was one of these people who were Federalists, and they wanted to, instead of easing tensions between poor landowners and rich landowners, they wanted to make it to where they stifled these Anti-Federalists and these poor landowners. And they created organizations like the Department of Justice, okay? And the Department of Justice is what they use to separate the state from the federal government. And that's what they've been doing, okay? They've been trying to separate federal from state all this time. And that's always been an issue. Like you ask the average person, they wouldn't know that poor people here in the United States weren't able to vote until Andrew Jackson became president. You know? But if you ask the average Joe out on the streets, in their minds, poor people always had the right to vote, and that wasn't the truth.
Another issue when it comes to Justice Department might that be the Department of Justice or Home Office in the UK. Is judges are there to interpret the law. If you've got poor legislation in the first place, poorly worded legislation in the first place, and they've got much more free hand to interpret the law. So it's down to
Well,
the right.
I mean,
Yes, right.
that's what Justin Trudeau's been doing up here.
Mm.
He has been intentionally wording the bills as vaguely as possible, so that they could be interpreted in a way that allows Trudeau to go after. That was going to allow Trudeau to go after his political opponents.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
But surely, if it's for the upper house or your versions of the House of Lords to review that, then send it back to that lower house and say, "Well, we don't agree with this."
And see, that's where I have another issue with, like, your House of Lords would be the equivalents of our Senate.
Yeah.
Now, the Senate here in the United States was set up again as a way of separating the state from the federal government. Okay, so before we had a Senate, what we had was freaking the House of Representatives, and they made decisions by taking that information that they had back to each state, and the states decided whether it was going to become a federal law or not. Well, instead of freaking doing it that way, which would have involved the individual and the states, they wanted to, again, separate the state from the federal even more by creating the Senate to where they could just stay there in Washington and they didn't have to freaking go back to each state to make a decision. And in my opinion, I think that governments in each state should have a say over what's being done in Washington, D.C. You know?
Yeah, but that creates over complication. I mean, look at the issue in relation to cannabis in the US and compared.
We're not all hip and fast like you guys are over in England. Our laws are slow and steady. You know what I mean? I don't agree with laws that are passed on a freaking moment's notice. You know, and if you disagree with a law, then you can just change it whenever you want. I don't agree with that shit. Like the Constitution that you guys have, you can change it anytime you want to. Ours is written in
But
stone.
we have got safeguards. We have got safeguards in the again. It has to go from the lower house to the upper house and return 3 times, and then it has to be signed off by the monarch, which is technically just a rubber stamp exercise these days. But arguably, the monarch could decline.
That would. Okay, so you guys, your monarch would be the equivalence of the executive office, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I just wanted to set that straight. So,
Like I said, it's just a rubber stamp exercise these days, so it's arguably meaningless.
I think that like when it comes to like the king or the queen, whenever she was there, I mean, I think that freaking they really don't have very much power whatsoever. You know what I mean? So whenever it comes to a lot of that, I just
in theory they do. In reality, that's question roll.
Now, that's basically all I got to say about it because Mark's pretty much just blown my mind on what the topic was.
Well, I mean, it's a different type of legal system. I mean, Canada's kind of like a hybrid between the two. But I mean, again, like Trudeau has been in Canada. Trudeau has been deliberately like wording the laws as vaguely as humanly possible to do that. But I mean, again, right? Trump is not doing. I mean, Javier Milei has been doing the exact same thing down in Argentina. Yeah, I suspect. Sorry, who? How did AFD do in Germany? By the way,
they came second place.
Whoa!
It was earlier today, actually.
I just heard about that earlier on.
Okay, CDU, CSU got 208 seats, so 28 of 28.52 of the votes. AFD received 152 seats, 20.8% of the votes.
Wow.
The SPD, which is the Socialists, received 120 seats, 16.41. And Green, I think that's the Green Party, received 85 seats, so 11.61%.
Oh wow. You know what? I totally forgot about that because I added in, if we had time, I added in the I added in the stuff for around Doctor Who potentially being canceled and Amazon buying the and buying the 007 franchise. In fact, bought the entire of Warner Brothers. And now you've got the German elections. I mean, I may have to have 2 episodes because and Joy Reid got fired today. There might actually be 2 episodes next week. Just letting you know, if it keeps going at this pace, because the German election, Joy Reid and the Hollywood stuff, which I might throw in today if time allows, is already that would already be quite a bit. If it keeps going the way it's going, I have to do 2 different episodes next week, 2 shorter episodes to fit it all in. But anyway, are we done on this particular episode?
Yeah. Right. If you're going to do that, just let me know a day beforehand. So
we'll see how busy it gets come Monday, because it's I'm already at 3: the German election, the Joy Reid being fired, and I might, depending on our time, I might add the Hollywood section in at the end of topic 6 tonight. But we'll see what our time frame is like at the end of topic number 6 tonight. Because David, I have no idea. Sometimes I do these topics and it's I figure, this is just going to be a really quick one, and it drags out. And there's topics that I think are going to drag on for a long time that end up finishing quickly. So, but anyway, let's move on with the next topic here. And on paper, it might be the last one. I said at the show we'd only had 6. I might add the Hollywood section in, but we'll see. But this one had to be added in because I don't usually add stuff in because I dislike a person. But David Hogg, if you don't know who David Hogg was the quote-unquote survivor of a school shooting in Florida. And then by some strange, bizarre fluke, he also managed to avoid another mass shooting a couple of years later. What a strange coincidence. The guy has been noted, at least while Biden was in office, especially when Twitter was being run by Dorsey and not Elon Musk. He was also notorious for getting people booted off Twitter in particular, but Facebook, and even he was just a nasty, vindictive little kid. Far leftist, and for some strange reason, hold on a second here. The Democrat National Committee decided to make this snotty little thought-nosed, hypocritical little brat the vice chair of the Democrat National Committee. Now, he wasn't even in that seat for 2 weeks, and it was already detected that he was engaging in financial fraud and using his seat on the National Committee to line his own pockets in terms of a super PAC, which he owned, which he's not supposed to do. The DNC, same thing with the Republican National Committee, is there to serve the interests of the party, not the individuals in the party. Mm-hmm. I can't say, given the fact that it's David Hogg, I really can't say I'm all that surprised. The guy's a snot-nosed little fucking brat who disappeared. And I've met this with a lot of leftists. And by the way, once upon a time, I used to run into this with a lot of fundamentalist Christians at one point back in the early 2000s as well, right? The moment you started going after them with really tough, difficult questions, they would just disappear and not answer you, or they would try to get you booted off a platform. And that's what David Hogg is doing. So if David Hogg is going to do something like this, then yeah, I'm actually going to talk about it, because he's just, I'm just going to throw this out there because I was talking about this when it came to the fact that you had 3 lesbian women who somehow managed to all get into positions of leadership on the LA fire department. By the way, fire departments tend to be anywhere between 95 and 97% male. And not just 3 women, 3 lesbian women. Same thing with this guy. The chances of somebody avoiding 2 mass shootings in a very short period of time, yeah, that just seems to be a little bit less than a coincidence. Yeah, he's a swarmy little fuck. I can't stand him. I hope, well, knowing what the Democrat Party's like right now, they probably won't boot him, but I hope they do. And I mean, yeah, I just don't like the guy. Rearson doesn't like him either. It's a pleasure to expose his sorry ass to the corruption and let people know what a corrupt little shit he is. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Just checking a few details there. Something that just struck me. He's only aged 24. 24 years old. Putting him in such a position at that age. As far as I can see, it is related to financial corruption. He putting in. I saw a figure of £100,000 of $100,000 in a year per year for compensation for something, but I'm not overly familiar with this person, so yes, this sounds like financial corruption. I'm presumably he's going to look at court actions at some point. I'm not sure if it would be civil or criminal in this case, but presumably it's fraud.
Well, it would qualify as fraud, and I hope they do go after him, and I hope he loses his seat. But then again, I really don't. Rearson absolutely hates this guy. I don't like him, which is why I'm covering this story. Roger, do you have anything to say on this snot-nosed little punk?
Well, the thing is, I don't like him either, but like I'm gonna hold off on saying a lot about this because I've been actually kind of checking up on this too because it's coming up everywhere, and most of the information that I draw from this isn't really like anything serious. Most of it comes off of like Facebook and X and Rumble and Instagram and BitChute and stuff like that. I wouldn't doubt that freaking David Hogg is caught up in some type of corruption scandal. But for me, what I'm seeing, like especially in the descriptions when they come out with these videos and everything, they're like duplicates. You know what I'm saying? Which destroys the freaking Democrats' brand. You know, who gives a shit about the Democrats' brand? You know what I mean? I'm so sick of hearing freaking people talk.
Oh yeah, I've seen that as well. It's like, no, it's not going to destroy the Democrats' brand. I mean, get rid of him, maybe, yeah, but not the Democrats' brand. Absolutely not.
Who gives a shit about a brand? You know what I mean? Like they're out trying to sell perfume or something. You know what I'm talking about? Like, what's my brand? You know, I got to create a brand. So a lot of this stuff is
from a marketing point of view, brands are useful or important. Again, you've got to, as a individual, as a member of the public, you've got to recognise what these companies or what these organisations, may they be agencies or government agencies or companies, what they stand for.
And that's why I'm against political parties, because political parties, I guess, are into branding and frickin' selling a frickin' product rather than worrying about their frickin' constituents and the people who are voting for them. You know, I've always been against political parties. I think that was probably the worst thing that ever happened to the United States. George Washington is the last best president we ever had. Well, Andrew Jackson too. I just mentioned him. He was pretty cool. Abraham Lincoln did free the slaves. I do have to say the kudos on him for that one.
Just out of curiosity, if we didn't have political parties, what would be the alternative?
It would be your vote would actually count. That's what it would mean.
Each individual vote does count.
No, it doesn't. It does not. It's which political party wins, which one has the more votes, so that freaking their electorate freaking and casts a vote for you, because you're too stupid to freaking vote according to them. They're gonna have a contest. They're gonna say, okay, which party gets more of the popular vote, and then the one who gets more of the popular vote, we're gonna allow that political party's electorates to vote on their behalf, because they're intelligent. Okay, they're the ones who are smart enough, according to these political parties, to make a decision for you. You're not smart enough to do it, so they're going to do it for you.
Well, arguably, on a lot of issues, the general public is not informed enough. I won't say smart enough. I would say informed.
I would say.
Well, I mean, I see a lot of political grandstanding individuals, particularly media, that will just say stuff and hope that you're too stupid. In fact, that's Trudeau's been doing with the mainstream media here in Canada. The mainstream media just says stuff, and you see it particularly on X/Twitter, where they will just say stuff and they will get absolutely destroyed in the comments, but they will say it anyway, even though nobody actually believes them. And of course, they've also, at one point, I've noticed he hasn't been doing it quite so much anymore, but Trudeau used to basically have these almost like paid trolls who would go online and put up these rah Trudeau posts on Twitter, and they would get absolutely destroyed, and of course they would never respond. I have stopped seeing those to a great degree. But I mean, I'm still seeing like members of the press in Canada anyway, just like make these statements and just hope to God you don't check the facts. And that's the same sort of thing. Yeah. Like.
I question, sure, Twitter is a big platform. Twitter and the social media landscape provides information to a lot of people. But saying that, how many of let's say a certain demographic, let's say Canadian citizens, how many of them actually take notice of Twitter? How many of them use Twitter on a regular basis, compared to how many people will follow the mainstream news?
Well, I really don't know. More than I would like, though, based upon, and then we're going all the way back to topic number one here. Look no further than Team USA getting booed, their national anthem being booed at the Canada-USA Four Nations tournament in Montreal, and what happened when they went to Boston, where it got a little bit of a smattering of boos, but I mean, towards the end, everybody in the arena was singing the tail end of the Canadian national anthem. Far more than you might think. Again, right? The media up here, Trudeau put out a $600 million subsidy for most of the major media operations in Canada. So literally, except for Rebel and I can't remember what their new name is. It's not True North anymore. It's
I know you mean.
It's not True North anymore. It's not True North. What name is it? It's Jesus. True North. It is Juno News. Other than Juno, True North, and a couple of other independent publications, like you don't have, and Trudeau has done everything in his power to defang the independent publications in Canada, right? It hasn't worked very well, but you do see, though, when he put out this huge propaganda push with Trump, and you saw what specifically hit, because, the political bullshit around the Four Nations this time, was just off the charts. Like levels of stupid. Like, I mean, again, going back to topic number one, right? Like, there's one idiot in Canada who like literally called Team USA Trump's team. And it's like, well, no, it's not Trump's team. Trump didn't pick the players. Trump didn't coach them. Trump didn't set the schedule. It's not Trump's team. And this guy got really pissed off and kept fucking arguing with me about it. Right? It's like, well, he showed up and he gave them a pep talk. Well, last time I checked, if you're in an international, like a big international tournament, like Four Nations or the World Cup or whatever, and your team makes the final, you kind of expect that the head of state is going to wish the team well in the final. It would be unusual for a head of state to not do that, right? It doesn't make Team USA Trump's team. Just like Justin Trudeau wished Team Canada well at the game in Boston, right? That does not make Team Canada Justin Trudeau's team either. But I mean, because Trump...
we see this in the UK with the Prime Minister occasionally, or the Minister for Culture, Sports and whatever, always applauding our cricket team or our rugby team or
this does not make sports and politics is tied together, but it went right over the top. And this was a short tournament. Keep in mind the players were like the best of the best, right? I mean, but still, right? I mean, the amount of politics involved in, well, I mean, don't want to rehash what went on, but I mean, again, right? The stupidest one I saw was somebody going off on an anti-Trump rant on a post about the speculation of what Team Russia would look like if it had played a tournament. And by the way, it won't be the Four Nations the next time this tournament gets held. The KHL in Europe will probably also take a break. That will allow the Czechs and the Russians to also field a team. So it'll probably be Six Nations next time.
One thing that strikes me is you both mentioned that the general public are sort of ignorant, stupid, idiotic, and I'll just call them misinformed or lacking information. But this goes back to the sort of education and the removal of critical thinking. This goes back to the so-called long march through the institutions to reduce critical thinking.
Now let me kind of spell this out. This is the reason why the electorate or the electorate here in the United States was even made up. Okay, this is the reason why freaking these political parties do the things they do. They're the ones who came up with this idea that we are not intelligent enough to freaking vote for who we want into office, that it has to be decided for us. And they've made a system set up to where not every individual's freaking ideas of who should be president is presented. Okay, it's all according to this electorate vote, which is dictated by freaking electorates, okay? And electorates are a certain amount of people, very few, who after these primary elections are given the right to vote on your behalf, okay? You have Democrat electorates, you have Republican electorates, and you have independent voting electorates. And they're the ones who cast the vote who's going to be president, or who cast the vote for that state. Okay, so during the elections, when you say that these votes from Illinois went to President Trump, then what you're seeing is these electorates casting the vote, not the people in that state.
But this is the difference between the US and, say, most of the Western world, UK and Canada. The people are the illiterate. The citizenry are the illiterate.
I would argue otherwise.
In
We should check that out and find out, because I very much doubt you guys are very much different than what
no,
we are.
in the UK system, it is the citizen is the electorate.
Do you have a political party? Do you have
Yeah, you have political parties, but when it comes to voting, it's based on the number of votes that a party receives. By the citizenry.
Well, I mean, maybe later we can get into that and check it out, because
Yeah.
that's most. I would guarantee that that's not the case. I would guarantee that that's not the case in most first world countries, to be honest.
Okay, that could be a interesting future stream.
Yeah, find out a comparison, especially with Germany, because like what you guys are talking about with the Conservative Party over there coming in second.
First, ADF, the so-called what the mainstream, what I keep on seeing the Guardian reports as the far right conservatives came in.
Oh yeah, I'm going to point out something. There was a rally of something like 250,000 people in one city in Germany against AfD, and I'm like looking at that. And when we talk about the German election, which we will be talking about them on 428. I'm like looking at all that, and like, there's no way that was just spontaneous. Like they had to bus all of those people in order for that to happen. I mean, it looked really impressive, but it was very impressive looking AstroTurf is what it looked like to me. And they wouldn't have been doing that with by the way, we're kind of getting off topic here, but they wouldn't have done that with AfD unless it wasn't looking like AfD was really going to make an impact. And it looks like they did. And when we actually get around to talking about the German elections for 428, which we will, get more speculative into that. Now, as for the political parties and David Hogg here, snot-nosed little. He's not a brat anymore. He's a full-grown man. He's 24 years old. But I mean, dude can go fuck himself.
He's still young for somebody in his position.
Yeah. He's being artificially propped up. But then again, as we've been seeing when it comes to what the Trump administration has been exposing and what independent reporters have been exposing in Canada, there's a lot. I mean, for instance, I haven't gotten into this very much, but ever since U.S. aid was dismantled, organized, like a lot of woke organizations, both in gaming and in hobbies, have suddenly, and even some streamers like Vouch or whatever, have suddenly found their revenue going down significantly. So this whole wokeism thing was being propped up artificially from the looks of things.
Now, see that right there is something that's true. It's like with Mark, I agree with, like, when it comes to government and being a part of politics and stuff. But like we had previously gotten into a conversation about Doge and how young these guys were that were going in and doing these investigations. Now, with that, I do disagree with. I mean, I think the younger people should be more involved, because, like, for them, they're more aware of a lot of this newer technology than what a lot of us older people are. I'm not saying that they should be like freaking making political decisions, but like when it comes to getting in there, finding the data, and looking for the newer, updated technologies, I think the younger ones do need to be involved in that, because they know what they're looking for, you know?
I didn't totally disagree with you. I do see the point of these young adults, let's just call them, acting as data analysts, but this does have some responsibility in with it, and therefore it should be for civil, more senior civil servants to view them.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, but I mean, at the same time, as an older man, I still believe that freaking we need to see more Trish Reagan in a bikini. I mean, so just saying.
That would win a few votes.
It's true. I mean, it's like freaking. So it's all in how you look at it. I know that there's a lot of younger people out there who are a little bit too motivated, if you know what I mean. So having older people that are freaking there to kind of regulate and make sure things aren't.
Just if anything, just to act as a sort of guiding hand.
Yeah, I can see that, but that's the only thing about age difference that I see. Like in the whole Doge thing, I can. Because they're doing excellent, to be honest. I mean, they're doing an amazing job. There's a lot of stuff they've already uncovered besides the IRS and stuff. Like, they've found, like, trillions of dollars that have gone missing. Okay.
Yeah, but there's one thing about finding the information, and then there's another thing about actually reacting to that information.
Well, according to what's being said by Elon, it was because of bad code. Okay. Now that kind of makes me wonder, because Elon Musk is saying that he can't track down money because of bad code. So that tells me that he was probably approached by individuals and told, look, you need to shut your mouth and not.
Yeah, is it bad code or is it bad auditing? Is that to people bad administration?
Well, is it deep state? You know what I mean? Trillions and trillions of dollars that came up missing, and it's because of bad code. And
by the way, guys, Trish Reagan is 52 years old. She's smoking ass hot for a 52-year-old.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's even better. Like it's like seasoned hot stuff.
Well, yeah, Red Pill Nation, one standard, no standard. Anyway, are we done? Talking about this punky little guy. Okay, so before I conclude tonight, I threw in the additional topic of the additional topic, and we could discuss it tonight, or we could move it to 428, and that is the issue of Doctor Who being canceled, and Amazon buying the rights to 007 franchise. Keep in mind, we are well over 2 hours now. I could schedule, because that would give us 3 topics already, and we're not even out of the first day of the week so far, right? Which means we might have to do 2 topics, two shows next week if things go really quickly. So I'm going to leave it. My feeling is that we should just call it a night right now. But if you guys want to talk about Doctor Who and Amazon, I will go ahead. But I'm going to leave it up to you two.
I need to do some. Sorry.
I'm good with holding off on it too.
I need to do some research on the Doctor Who. Oh, sorry, I need to do some research on the 007 thing first. I know about Doctor Who, but not the 007.
Dude, you're an Englishman. You don't need to do research on Doctor Who. Everybody.
No, I know the entire Doctor Who issue, but I don't know anything about the James Bond issue.
Oh, James
Bond is also British.
Yeah, what's wrong?
Yeah,
I don't know which is worse, the fact that you need to do research on Doctor Who or James Bond.
The current situation in relation to the 007 franchise.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, we will laugh and mock Mark Edworthy when he comes back on for 428, because he actually needs to do research on 2 British staples of cinema and entertainment.
Again, I know a lot about Doctor Who. I know the issues surrounding Doctor Who, but yeah. 007 been not so
You
sure about.
you can't even blame freaking like Doctor Who on being not into entertainment, because everybody who was freaking computer nerds loved Doctor Who, dude. So,
Well, at least until, well, I mean, Jodie Whittaker. It started going downhill with Jodie Whittaker, but this, like, I mean, what's currently happened is, like, apparently not even the actor who plays Doctor Who this time wants to come back. But tells you how bad it's gotten. But that is it for tonight's show. Then, I hope you enjoyed it. Somehow we got above, despite the fact that I didn't advertise it. We've been above double digits for about half the show, which actually kind of shocked me. I hope you guys all enjoyed the show. Yes, there is a very strong possibility we'll be doing 2 shows next week, because like I say, we've already got 3 topics for the upcoming shows. I hope you enjoyed this show. Yep, I will see you all on the next one, and that's the end of the stream, folks.